In the autumn of 1888, the gaslit streets of London's East End were gripped by a suffocating fear. A mysterious figure, cloaked in darkness and fog, terrorized the city with a string of brutal, horrifying murders. He was never caught, he was never identified, but his name still echoes through history: Jack the Ripper. Welcome to Case Closed Files. Today, we repealing back the layers of time to explore one of the most chilling and enduring mysteries ever known. Imagine Whitechapel, London, in the late 19th century. This wasn't the London of postcards and royalty. This was a sprawling, overcrowded district teeming with poverty, desperation, and the daily struggle for survival. The air was thick with coal smoke and the stench of the Thames. Narrow, winding alleys and dimly lit streets, often shrouded in a pea-soup fog, created a labyrinth where shadows danced and danger lurked around every corner. This was the perfect hunting ground for one of history's most infamous and elusive killers. Between August and November of 1888, a period of just a few months, this already harsh reality turned into a living nightmare. At least 5 women were savagely murdered, their deaths marked by a brutality that shocked even a city accustomed to violence. The killer was a phantom, a ghost who struck with terrifying speed and then vanished without a trace, leaving behind only bloodshed and a city paralyzed by fear. His identity unknown to this day. To truly understand the horror, we must remember the victims. They were more than just names in a century-old case file. Historians now recognize what's known as the canonical 5, the women widely believed to be the definitive victims of Jack the Ripper. It began with Mary Ann Nichols, known as Polly. She was murdered on August 31st, 1888. Her body was discovered in the pre-dawn hours on a dark street. Her throat cut so deeply she was nearly decapitated. Just over a week later, on September 8th, the killer struck again. This time, the victim was Annie Chapman. She was found in the backyard of a tenement house, not only killed in the same manner, but also horrifically mutilated. The city's fear began to escalate into full-blown panic. Then came the night of September 30th, a night that would go down in criminal history as the double event. First, Elizabeth Stride was found. Her throat had been cut, but it seemed the killer may have been interrupted, as her body bore no further mutilations. But he wasn't finished. Less than an hour later, and barely a mile away, the body of Catherine Eddowes was discovered. She had suffered the same fate as the others, but with an even more ghastly level of post-mortem mutilation, including the removal of her kidney. The audacity of killing 2 women in a single night in a city on high alert was staggering. The final canonical victim was Mary Jane Kelly. Her murder on November 9th was the most brutal of all. Unlike the others, she was killed indoors, in the privacy of her small room. This gave the killer ample time to carry out his most depraved acts. The scene that greeted the police was so gruesome, so utterly devastating, that seasoned officers were left shaken for life. All 5 women shared a similar tragic story. They were living on the margins of society, struggling with poverty and addiction, forced into sex work to survive on the dangerous streets of Whitechapel. The killer targeted them, their throats cut with vicious force, their bodies then mutilated with a chilling precision that suggested a disturbing level of anatomical knowledge. Was he a doctor, a butcher? The question haunted investigators. In response to the escalating terror, the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police launched one of the most extensive investigations of the era. Hundreds of officers scoured the dark streets of Whitechapel. Detectives went door to door, interviewing thousands of residents, lodging house keepers, and potential witnesses. They posted rewards, hoping to coax information from a community that was often distrustful of the police. Vigilante groups formed, patrolling the streets themselves, armed with whistles and clubs. But it was no use. The killer was a ghost. He seemed to materialize from the fog, commit his heinous acts, and then vanish back into the labyrinthine city without a single reliable sighting. The investigation was further complicated by a media frenzy and a flood of public correspondence. In the midst of the panic, letters claiming to be from the murderer began to arrive at newspapers and police stations. Most were cruel hoaxes, but a few stood out. One infamous note, which came to be known as the Dear Boss letter, taunted the police and was signed with a chilling flourish: Jack the Ripper. Whether it was genuinely from the killer or not, the name stuck. It was memorable, menacing, and it forever cemented the murderer's dark legend in the public imagination. Another piece of mail, the From Hell letter, arrived with a small box containing half of a human kidney, believed to have been from Catherine Eddowes. The message was clear. This was a killer who reveled in his notoriety and mocked the authorities trying to catch him. As the years turned into decades, the question of Jack the Ripper's identity has become an obsession for amateur sleuths and professional historians alike. The list of potential suspects is enormous, with hundreds of names proposed over the last century. Let's look at some of the most prominent theories. There was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher from a respectable family. His body was found floating in the Thames in December 1888, shortly after the final murder. His own family suspected he might have been the killer, and his death conveniently coincided with the end of the Ripper's reign of terror. But the evidence against him is purely circumstantial. Then there's Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish immigrant who worked as a hairdresser in Whitechapel. He was known to have severe mental health issues and a deep-seated hatred of women. A senior police official from the time wrote in his memoirs that he believed Kosminski was the culprit, but there wasn't enough evidence to bring him to trial, and he was eventually committed to an asylum. In recent years, controversial DNA evidence from a shawl supposedly found near one of the victims pointed to Kosminski, but the scientific community remains deeply divided on the validity of those findings. Another compelling suspect is Walter Sickert, a renowned artist who was fascinated by the dark, sordid side of London life. crime novelist. Patricia Cornwell famously spent millions of dollars investigating her theory that Sickert was the Ripper, claiming DNA evidence linked him to the letters. However, like the Kosminski DNA, her findings have been heavily disputed by experts. The theories don't stop there. They range from the plausible to the utterly fantastic. Suspects have included doctors, butchers, and even a female Jill the Ripper. Wild speculation has even dragged royalty into the fray, with some outlandish claims pointing to Prince Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson, suggesting a grand conspiracy to cover up his dark deeds. But despite all the books, documentaries, and endless speculation, not a single suspect has ever been definitively, undeniably linked to the crimes. So, who was Jack the Ripper? Was he a skilled surgeon, using his medical knowledge to perform the horrific mutilations? Was he a local butcher, desensitized to blood and gore? Or was he simply a madman, driven by unknowable urges and a thirst for violence? Some theories suggest the murders were part of a dark ritual. Others argue that the killer's ability to evade capture points to him being a local, someone who knew the streets of Whitechapel like the back of his hand and could melt away into the night. The truth remains buried in the past, a tantalizing and frustrating mystery. But the legacy of Jack the Ripper extends far beyond the identity of the killer. His gruesome crimes had a profound and lasting impact on the world. They exposed the shocking poverty and social conditions in London's East End, sparking calls for social reform. More importantly, the failures of the police investigation forced a complete overhaul of police methods. The Ripper case led to advancements in forensic science and investigative techniques. It fueled the very birth of what we now call criminal profiling, the idea of studying a criminal's actions to understand their psychology. In a strange way, the hunt for this Victorian monster helped shape modern policing. More than 130 years have passed. The foggy gaslit alleys of Whitechapel have given way to the modern streets of London, but the shadow of Jack the Ripper still lingers. His identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the annals of criminal history. We may never truly know who he was or what drove him to commit such unspeakable acts. He is a ghost, a legend, a terrifying question mark that hangs forever over the history of London. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark heart of Victorian London. If you find these deep dives into historical mysteries compelling, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more from Case Closed Files, where we revisit the darkest cases the world has ever seen. See you next time.